Hey, Carrie here with Planning of Music. This is my first official chatting video. I've done a few music song videos, and I realized that I really should do a series about the songs that I pick. So this is the first edition or the first episode, I don't know, whatever you want to call it. This is the first video that I'm doing of the story behind the song that I chose. So the song that I'm featuring today, and the story that goes along with why I chose it, that is from the Psalter hymnal. This is out of my hymn projects playlist, is Lead Me, Guide Me. And it's done by, I got my Psalter hymnals here. This was my grandfather's, this blue one here. And then this is from a church that we attended, the red one or the brown one, whatever you want to call it. Anyways, and then I got the gray hymnal. So, anyhow, and that's my flute. So, anyways, getting back to why I chose this song. I didn't really know where to start with this YouTube channel. It's a huge leap of faith for me to step into doing videos. It's a little bit different. I write a blog at notefullliving.com, and I will put the link for my other channel here. So if you like what you see here, that's kind of what you're gonna get over there on that channel. Anyways, so I grew up playing hymns, so I thought that I would start the channel with something, I don't know, something familiar. And I think a lot of people can reflect on the hymns that way. If I think about it, the church that I attended as a kid, I'm in my early 30s, and the music that we had was it's a Reformed church, and we still had those slat boards up in the front of the church with the big pipe organ pipes and the huge display. A lot of them were fake; they weren't actually part of the organ display. But we sat there with our hymnals and waiting for the next song and sitting there making sure we knew. But that was only my earliest memory of that was I think it was 25 years ago. It's not that long ago. Anyways, so but back to hymn projects and Lead Me, Guide Me. It was actually a song that I needed to lean on in a really difficult time in my life, and this happened actually not that long ago. And my husband and I, in our family, we had 2 kids at the time. We were attending a church, and I had a real, I don't know, I'm still coming out in my faith and sharing my testimony, so excuse me if I kind of stumble as I share this. It's still kind of open and raw, but you know what, we need to share our stories, we need to share our experience so that anybody else that's gone through something similar, or they're going through something similar, that they can be encouraged by what they're going through. So we'd been attending this church for a while, and I was sitting in church. I played flute and been on worship team and that sort of thing for since we started attending, and we grew our family there. And when we first came, the church had they've actually been through 4 pastors in the 9 years that we were there. So the first pastor that we met, he encouraged me. He's like, oh, you have a musical background, we have a worship coordinator position open, so you should apply. That time it didn't work out, but a couple of years ago the position came up again, and I was nope, I'm not even gonna go there, I'm not even gonna consider it. So 6 months goes by, and the pastor was in front of church, and he was flat out saying 6 months goes by, and they reposted the ad for the position. And then I was sitting in church, this is a very traditional church, wooden pews, everything. And yes, that red hymnal is from this church, and they still have the slats in the pews for the hymnal books. Anyways, so I'm sitting in church, and the pastor opening announcements sort of thing in the beginning of the service, and he is discussing with the congregation about how they're reposting the ad, and they're putting out for the first wave of applicants wasn't a fit for the church. And this is one of the first experiences, aside from like a really strong, vivid vision that I had in like my faith walk. I actually had a vision of this church probably about 4 years prior to this, actually even earlier than that. Anyways, I like my husband and I, we weren't happy there for about the first 4 or 5 years that we attended, and we wanted to leave. And I had a flat out vision. Actually, it was January, very early January of 2014, and I had a vision of being in this church. And I was like, whoa, okay, like God's telling us to stay. So I was like, all right. I won't get into that vision here today, but anyhow, so I had that vision and we stayed. And then this position came up again, and I was like, I totally ignored it. Like, we were having our kids and that kind of thing, and I was really busy with that. I like helped serving in the church. Like, I helped on secretary, and I was like helping custodial and those sort, like just little odd jobs and that kind of stuff. But anyhow, sitting in the pew, and I had like, I guess it's like the Samuel moment where God's speaking to Samuel, and he's like, I don't, like, he hears a voice and he thinks it's, you know, the other guy. Anyways, I'm sitting in the pew, and the pastor says, like, you know, we don't understand why it's taking so long for this position to be filled. And a voice said to me, like, there was a teenager sitting behind me, like, so when this happened, I like flipped around, and I like, this kid looked at me like, what? Like, why are you looking at me? Anyways, so this voice tells me they're waiting for you. And I'm like, really? Like, I just, like, I told my husband later, and I was just like, I was a little bit shocked. And he, like, even though I had previously, I had put an application in for this position prior, I wasn't in no way ready for that. And my husband was actually super encouraging this time. He was like, yeah, like, you know what, I can see you being in that position. So I was like, okay, well, God called us to stay. Maybe this is why. Like, God can call you to things, and you never understand for what reason. So anyhow, so getting to the whole, like, where lead me, guide me came in. I had to, like, what happened next, I had to really lean on this song for, like, several months after this. I put my application in, and I didn't really hear anything for a while. And I had some feedback from some people that I really trusted, and I had, like, from the time we first started attending this church, I was like 23. I was really young, so I had a lot of growing to do, a lot of maturing. Like, I feel like that time that we were at that church, it was like God was just like pruning the vine and just like taking away all the bad stuff that I needed to like let go of. Anyways, so I like put the application in, I got a phone call, and they wanted to meet with me. So I was like, okay. It turned out to be a courtesy sit down. I was being told no, and they wanted me to, because I was so involved in the church, they wanted me to continue with the things that I was doing. And there was some other things that were said. It's even hard for me to even voice it here now, but they implied that as they put it, this job requires a backbone. And I was a little bit like, wow, okay. I really felt like they didn't know truly who I was, or like they didn't even give me an opportunity. Like, if you're ever in this position and like you're on a committee, I'm just gonna throw this out there. If you're ever on a committee and somebody applies from within the church congregation, I'd encourage you to ask the questions that you want to ask for them, instead of coming across as, like, I found this to be extremely judgmental, that they judged my character and put it that way. I had actually approached the pastor a couple weeks later. Like, it took a few weeks before I could actually like book a time with him and meet with him. And I told him, like, he was new to the church. I was like, I felt really judged by what you had to say. And he was like, well, I guess I'm new, like, I want to get to know you better. And I agreed with him that was a good thing. But he also, like, he's like, well, I was taking that from the people that were on the committee. So anyhow, it was kind of like the first, like, I know God called us to stay at this church, but I was like, I don't know, other things happened and we did end up leaving. But the song, like, I had to really talk to God about this afterwards, and I was like, why did you, like, very boldly, I'd never heard God speak to me that way before. How could you very boldly tell me to go do something And I made sure I'm like, no, I've learned that God calls you to something, you need to obey. If God's calling you to something, you need to obey. Don't question him, just do it. I don't know how else to say it, but I had learned that over time to do those things. And so this is one of those times. And then just to hear no was like, it was a bit of a shock. So anyways, I had to, like, I spent a lot of time in prayer, and I did a little bit more researching. I'm like, well, if they say that this job requires backbone, then that, like, one other person's warning for me was, like, it was a close friend of mine, and she was just like, I just don't think you're going to be able to handle the criticism, because there's so much negativity that happens, and like, pastors get it all the time, like, but worship coordinators even more so. And anyhow, it's just, people take it very personal with, like, music and worship and that sort of thing, and as they should, but I don't know. I'm not going to get into that conversation. So anyhow, I found out, and I know it's like, if I look back on it, I'm actually kind of thankful that this was said to me. Like, it was very bold and very blunt towards me, and I found out that I am a highly sensitive person. I've always known that, but honestly, it's a huge gift that I have, and the drawback is everybody thinks that I wear my heart on the sleeve, and they see me as, like, highly emotional person, and they see that as unstable. And I actually, if you want to have somebody serving in your church for music, I would want them to have the gift that I have personally, if I was in that position. So again, back to the song, like, I really needed something that was comforting, something that was familiar for me to work through that time. So I would, like, sit at my piano and I'd, like, play, like, lead me, guide me along the way. For if you lead me, like, I will not stray, sort of thing. And anytime that there's something that comes up, like, whether it's, like, something that needs to be done for my blog, and I'm just like, I'm so not ready to share that. Like, I'm not ready to put that out there. And I'm like, God's calling me to do it. Lead me, guide me. Then fine. I got to play for, like, a 60th wedding anniversary for piano, and it's another hymn that I'll be doing shortly. And I hadn't really, like, yes, I had played flute for so many years, and I've always wanted the opportunity to be, like, I've been practicing all this time to do lead piano, because, like, the church that we were at, that was the lead instrument, was the grand piano. So I've been working really hard at, like, practicing and getting better at that sort of thing. Funny little offshoot, the new church that we were attending, I did a audition for their worship position, not their worship position, but to be on worship for their church services, and she gave me chord sheets, and I was straight up with her. I'm like, you can't give me chord sheets. That's when I realized that I'm a very traditional player. So anyhow, and there's nothing wrong with that. Like, there's strengths in that too. So I was just a little bit taken aback by, I'm like, this isn't music. It's guitar music, and vocalists use it, but it's not music. Sorry. That's just a little side note. So anyhow, like, back to the song and back to this experience that I had. Music has a big impact in my life, and so having that song and being able to share it here on the channel and just showing you the story behind why I played it, that's a big part of it. I've needed a lot of healing over the years. There's other things that happened within that church that we were at that I finally was like, God, I know that you called us to stay, but we really need to go. Our kids were being affected by the negativity, and I was having panic attacks going to church. You know what? You gotta know the warning signs when it's time to leave. So, anyhow, that's the story behind the song. Where am I at now? Oh, that's the last thing. Okay, before this gets too long. The big thing out of all of this, and I haven't really shared this with too many people, so now it's out there. It's gonna be out there. It's gonna be out there shortly after this. So while I was, like, praying and trying to process everything that was happening, and I was asking God, I'm like, why did you say no? And he's like, I'm just preparing you. And we don't realize how much we're being prepared for the gifts that he's given us. Like, there can't be two Carries. Like, we just did a women's Bible study with our church, and she talks about that in the last video. She's like, there can't be two Rebeccas. And it was all about creating. And just, like, Ephesians, it talks about, like we're you're a masterpiece. You're, like, your workmanship. Like, you're God's workmanship. And anyhow, what God told me throughout this, he's like, I'm not making you worship, like, I'm not training you up to be a worship coordinator for a church, like for a physical congregation sort of thing. He's like, I'm making, like, preparing you to be a worship coordinator for the world. And that really hit me. I was like, what does that mean? Like, I've been trying to, like, think about that, and I'm like, no, it's too big to think about, like, to be something, to be able to play on the world stage. But guess what? Here it is. It's COVID time, with whatever is going on with the world in that sense. And we can't attend church. Our church is a massive church. They have, like, well over, like, 300 plus people, like 3 services. It's a big church, but I've been really enjoying the music online, and just watching the example of, like, the people from our church and how they're playing. And I realized, I was like, you know what, even though it was, you know, through my audition, they were like, you know what, like, I got to play and sing. And I've told, like, the choir director when I sang in the choir and stuff that I play flute, but I was like, you know what, I get to play flute, and I got to post videos here on YouTube, and in some small way, in this, like, little corner of the World Wide Web, I have this channel, and I get to share these songs and play these songs and just use it as being, like, a worship coordinator for the world. Not that that's a prideful statement, in no way is that. This is all, as I said, that song, Lead Me, Guide Me, this is him. This is totally, like, God's doing. I'm generally a very shy person and quiet, and as I've shared, I can be very emotional, and I'm often the observer in the room. I, like, unless I'm in, like, a close group of friends, do I open up. And it takes me a while to, like, you know, be me. So anyhow, hope you enjoyed that story, and this is just something that I've had to walk through. But I don't know what you're going through today or what experience you have, but I don't know. Let me know if there's other songs that you want me to do. I'm just going to continue to do songs that as of right now that I'm comfortable with, and that I've know from my past, that are just songs that have been great for me. Like, I did Shout to the Lord, that's another one. So anyhow, Shout to the Lord, I will definitely do the story behind the song. I kind of did that on my Instagram a little bit, and I shared it on there. So yeah, anyhow, I love it if you subscribe to my channel. It's a little way that I can eventually, I'd love to be able to bring in some income through this. I'm not really sure how it's all going to look yet, but God knows, and He knows. So yeah, I don't try not to say the phrase I don't know, but anyhow, have a great day. I gotta go take care of my family now. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed this, and comment below if you have any questions, or if there's anything more that you want to expand on. As I do these videos, story behind the song, you'll get to hear a little bit more pieces of my testimony. So okay, have a great day.